Hello folks, this is Gerry Callan, StarBets.ie. The guy I'm with, well, there's no introduction, so he's not getting one. Kenny, I suppose the obvious question is, what prompted you to do the book in the first place?
I was approached back in February to write a book, my stories about the Olympic Games and how I got there, but at the time I was a bit apprehensive. I felt I wasn't on the planet long enough to write an autobiography. There was still loads left in me, and I said no at first, but then I had a strong think about it, and when I look back at it now at the finished product, I had a lot to tell, in relation to me long struggle to the top.
Yeah.
And then the bit of a it took me 18 years to get to the top and 2 years to come off the ladder and hit me rock bottom, and I wanted to share my story with people, and hopefully they'll take something from it.
Writing a book is one thing. What prompted you to write the book that you did?
Yeah.
The honesty and the admissions and everything in it.
I sat down with Ewan McKenna, the journalist who was asked to have a chat with me about the book. I said, Ewan, if I'm going to do this book, it's going to be warts and all. I want people to know who I am exactly. I don't want one of these books where I'll just give all my results, say how boxing has been great to me, I've travelled the world and all is well in the world. I didn't want that. I wanted to know the madness that I brought upon myself after the games. I wanted to reveal everything, and that's what I've done in the book, and I haven't left much out.
Maybe it's an unfair question, I don't know, but how confident are you in your ability to stay on the dry after what you've been through?
Yeah, look, I do still get urges. I'm not going to lie, but it's a day-to-day basis for me now, Gerry. And it's like that with the boxing as well. I'm enjoying my boxing now. I'm taking it one day at a time. Things are starting to happen for me because I'm aware my alertness is back, and I'm able to turn up for things. And I'm back where I am in probably the start of 2008. I want to be unknown again. I want to be just training away and enjoying my sport like I was in 2008. And that's when I feel I peak.
In the book, you tell very movingly and honestly that your relationship with Gerry Callan and Billy Walsh in the beginning was, shall we say, fraught, to say the least. What convinced you that they were right and you were wrong, or what swung you around?
Yeah, I was part of the team in 2001 and we travelled. And the thing then was, you went to a competition, you got beat, you had your few points. That's why it was so hard at the start for Gerry as the director to get us into training camps in France and Germany and stuff like that, because they knew what we were like. And I think it was the whole thing with Gerry coming in on board in 2003 with the high performance. There was a bit of authority there and a bit of leadership, and that's what the boxing needed in Ireland. And he brought that. He drew a line across the floor, and he said, whoever wants to step across that line, we're going to get serious here about boxing.
He literally drew a line, did he?
He put his foot across the floor and drew a line, and I was the first man over it. Because I was the longest on the team, we needed change. I stepped across, and it was the best thing that that happened to Irish boxing. We started to get serious. We started to to take steps forward. We got a team together, our dietitians, our physiotherapists, our strength and conditioning coaches, and we started to go to France. And we got out of France and went to Germany, and then we went across as far as Russia with the help with Zora and things like that. We're mixing it with the best in the world, and that's what Ireland needs.
And now you have the Russians and everybody else coming here.
Yes, even there's a perfect example there. We went to Russia before the games in 2008 for a training camp, and after 2008 we asked to go back over in 2009, and they refused to take us. We were learning too much from them.
Yeah.
And now that's a compliment in itself.
Absolutely, absolutely. The low points outside the ring are well documented in the book. In the ring, what was the low point? Would it have been Chicago 2007 or where?
Obviously, my Olympic qualifiers right back to 2004 were a real kick in the teeth, but probably my lowest was probably the Olympic final, maybe. Being so close to be actually the Olympic champion. Now, in fairness, when I'm walking around now, people still get mixed up and say, oh, there's Kenny Egan, the Olympic champion.
Yeah.
But I have to correct them and say, no, Olympic silver medal,
But you do actually correct them.
Oh, of course, I'm a silver medalist. I'm not going to take, the gratitude or the applause for winning the gold. But it was a close fight. But I think my finest moment was the end of round 2 against the German. in the last qualifier when it was 2-all, and I had to make a decision in a split second. Am I going to be remembered as an 8-time senior champion or an Olympian? And I went on to beat the German and qualify for the games. That was a defining moment in my boxing career.
And how do you feel about the final itself? Like, I mean, personally, I would describe you as desperately unlucky. I think it would be an exaggeration to call it robbery, but you were definitely unlucky. Certainly in the latter stage of the second round, you seemed to score points that weren't registered. How do you feel about that? Well, what's your overall feeling on it?
I watched that fight 6 weeks after the actual final itself for the first time, and I added up the scores. I felt I won by 2 or 3 points, but look, I tried to judge myself in a like a club showdown in the country. It's a very, very hard thing to do.
Of course, yeah.
For me, it was human error. You have 5 judges around the ring. They're hitting the wrong buttons at the wrong time. That's all it was. Nothing like I was offered a silver medal at the start. Gerry, I'd take it with 2 hands.
Yeah.
But if I had been anywhere else, I'd say I could have nicked it. If I had been in any other country,
Well,
very
again,
close fight. It could have went either way.
I don't think anyone would argue with that. Final question. You intimated a couple of weeks ago that because of the qualifying process, there's only 1 at heavyweight and there's 3 at light heavy, that you may well consider going back down to light heavy. Have you any further thoughts on that? The championships are only 2 months away.
That's all, yeah. I'm definitely coming down to 81.
Definitely.
Yeah, 100%. It's my only option. I could stay at heavyweight and cod myself. I could win the seniors again for an 11th time and break the record and all that. But I've no interest in doing that. You know, I can be senior champion at heavyweight and go to these qualifiers and get beat.
Yeah, I think there's only 1 spot. There's 3 at light heavy, plus a 4th, which is the tripartite selection. But that tends to go to countries that haven't got a qualifier.
Okay, so you're looking at 3.
But one area where you might get in on that is being a silver medalist. But you can't depend on that, obviously. You know?
Look, to go to the seniors now and win them is my first Olympic qualifier and the major Olympic qualifier. That's not to say that whoever wins the senior next year is going to qualify with 3 places left. Yeah. There's nothing set in stone until your hand is raised.
But
I know that.
Definitively, you're going for light heavyweight.
I'm going back down to 81, and I've utmost respect for Joe. How young he was coming on board and taking the senior title back in 2011. He's a great kid, plenty of talent. But look, I'm sure the two will lock horns again next February.
Thanks, Kenny, as always.
Okay.